It's 6 o'clock and we'll begin on time. And welcome everybody. My name is Harlan Johnson. I'm a friend of the League of Women Voters and I'll be the moderator tonight. The League of Park Rapids in Minnesota is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. If you need more information about the League,
if it's any possible way, yeah, put it up for you.
a little bit early.
Try that.
All right. If you'd like more information about the League of Women Voters, there's brochures at the back of the room. Thank you for attending tonight's event. We also want to thank the participants for taking time out of their schedule to be here tonight to participate in this forum. Thanks to the many volunteers who are here tonight, and to our timers, Melissa Stanfield and Susan Bearden. And also thanks to Northwoods Bank for providing the meeting space. There are refreshments now in the back of the room, and for later, for your enjoyment, donations are always welcome. The restrooms are located in the hallway on your right, turn left, and please silence your cell phones at this time. The candidates have received the ground rules for this event. As audience members, we ask you to remain quiet as possible so that everyone can hear. Please hold your applause until the forum is ended so each candidate can use their time to answer your questions. The League will determine which questions will be asked and will attempt in good faith to cover areas of interest expressed by the audience. Questions have been screened and will be screened, and several questions will be consolidated so as many topics as possible can be covered. No questions of personal nature or that of inappropriately hostile or unclear intent will be asked. And if you do have questions, now is a good time to have them. You were provided with cards to write out your questions, raise your hand, and a volunteer will pick up your question and bring it back to be screened. Our goal is to have a civil discussion on all issues and get information that you need to know before you vote on November 6th. And thanks again, participants, for being here tonight. We'll start out with introductory statements, and Dion, would you please start, and would you tell us why the voters of Hubbard County should elect you sheriff?
Sure. I'm gonna stand up here, if it's okay. I want to thank everybody, can you hear me back there? I want to thank everybody for showing up, first of all. The reason I'm running for sheriff here, I think that we need a new vision. Some things that I've been in law enforcement 29 years. Before that, I was a deputy for 8 years prior to coming to the state patrol. I've been a trooper for 22 years, going to my 30th year. Been involved in a lot of different things. I feel that with the training experience I got, I bring a lot to the county. There's a few things that I really want to get started and get moving on in this program. Been up here for 20 years. My kids have all came through the Park Rapids school system. My last one will be a senior this year. I do crash reconstruction for the state as well. Been married to my wife for 29 years. She's also a trooper in the area here. We lived around here. We've done a lot of different things. I've coached hockey for 15 years. I've also done baseball, coached baseball for 5 years. I do the driver's ed program with Todd Pulowski, teaching a lot of that stuff. So I am quite active. I'm out and about with the public. I'm out with his kids, those types of things. So, and I do think that we could use a different change here, a little different venue. I'm not from Hubbard County originally. I grew up in Anoka, so I really don't have a whole lot of ties up here. But for me, it would be a good change pace and give people up here a little different aspect and training, and as far as things that we should get done up here. We're working on the drug program as well, strong.
We messed up. Go ahead. You have more minutes.
I'm good.
All right.
Thank you. Corey?
Thank you. I'm your sheriff, Corey Akis, born and raised here in Hubbard County in Park Rapids. A 1988 graduate of Park Rapids High School, criminal justice degree at Bemidji State University. I've been a DARE officer here with the Sheriff's Office, a field training officer, sergeant for 5 years, and I've been your sheriff for the past 8. Married with 2 kids, started my career here 28 years ago, and I never left. Been a dedicated officer, a dedicated sheriff, and I made public safety my career and my priority here since day one. Very proud of my staff that I've surrounded myself with. They're the ones who actually make your sheriff's office what it is today, and it truly is a great department. Accountability means everything to me, whether it's the dispatcher on the phone, the deputy at your door, or the criminals committing their crimes. It's a huge thing. I'm a supporter and a strong believer of the United States Constitution. I've served on the board of directors for the Minnesota Sheriff's Association. I'm currently the board chair for Headwaters Intervention Center. I sit on our school safety committees, all 3 schools in the county. I'm on the Safe Roads Coalition, Hubbard and Prevention, HIP. I'm on the Dementia Friendly Community Committee, and I'm also a sponsor of Kinship. I do this because I truly believe it's important to be involved in leadership roles in the county. Thank you.
Dion, due to the increase of summer residents, there are so many more complaints about watercraft safety and violations involving watercraft operators, plus other public nuisances around the lakes. How should the Sheriff's Department prioritize and handle these situations, and what would you see any changes that should be made?
Make sure this thing's up here. Well, part of it is you have to take into account the severity of them. Is there somebody moving around out in the lake, or are they moving towards shore and causing wake issues where the kids are swimming, those type of things? You have to prioritize different things. I know there are grants out there from the DNR to try to get funding for some of these. It's maybe the point that I know the county currently now has sometimes a couple boat and water deputies out working. Might have to look back at scheduling, look at the lakes, the high priority of them. Try to keep everybody safe. There's things you can do with some of the issues that are out there as far as dealing with the problems that are coming up and citing those people. It's not that they're just coming up here and they're in the good old country. It's the same wherever lake you're on. They still have the same rules, the same ordinances, and if we need to change an ordinance to work on that, keep them further away than a lot of distance, we should be able to do that as well.
We actually do write grants for boat and water every year. We've done that since I took over as sheriff. We start out in the spring putting buoys out for the safety purposes of it to mark, hazards, and we take them out in the fall. In fact, my crew was out today even starting to pull some of those in. Every day, just about every day, throughout the spring, summer, and fall, we have boat and water staff that are out there on the water patrolling. They're not only patrolling, being proactive, but they're also responding to calls that come in. And for obvious reasons, we have a 0 tolerance for careless driving type of complaints that are on the water, and that's a given, absolutely. And, I don't know what we really would do differently. Like I say, the deputies that are out there now do a great job. They're proactive, and they have safety in mind, so they do a good job.
In that same vein, then, there are several questions on ATVs about requiring license, running driveways, etc. As sheriff, what do you do, or what changes in dealing with, what changes would you recommend or do you believe are required for dealing with ATVs?
Well, we get a lot of ATV complaints every year, and we currently have a full-time ATV officer that's on the department, and he's proactive as well, whether it's being out on the trails on the machine or responding to different calls throughout the county. With the different types of machines, there's always issues with them crossing driveways, tearing up driveways. But again, we have a 0 tolerance policy for careless operation. And when we get those calls and we catch people, they get cited, absolutely. Some of the ATV laws are confusing because of the different classes of ATV laws. I guess if I had my way, and I wish it would take place at the state, they should probably make it a little bit more consistent for ATVs, instead of having different rules for different classes of machines. So I wish that would take place.
Deanne, as sheriff, what would you make any changes in dealing with ATVs?
Well, they are kind of difficult because it seems like they're here one minute and they're gone the next because they cut off into the woods or they cut off the trail. You have to go up and try to get them stopped. If they can get a good description of those vehicles that are actually running around or doing the damage. I firmly believe that probably a majority of the people out there riding are riding out there recreational, having fun, not doing damage or not being destructive. There are a certain amount that are, obviously they're out there, that are destructive. Those are the ones that we need to deal with, if we can get a decent description, those types of things. Again, I would be the same thing, zero tolerance. You have to, try to educate the people. Not just because you can turn the key and get on it, you know how to ride the thing. You gotta make sure that you can go through it. I would advocate that we have some other safety programs up here. Do a little more, advertising the laws, restrictions, and things that are going on. So there's people that are coming in at the gas stations to get fuel. They have that, or working with the state, the legislators at that level, to try to get something more, a little more restrictive. I'm not a big fan of some of them, the way they drive. And I know firsthand going to doing reconstruction that I have been to several of the ATV fatalities. And it's all just been, screwing around and their type of thing. So just the zero tolerance and then, stay on.
Dan, in your view, what is your view on the opiate crisis, the drug problem in the county, and should there be a countywide plan to address these problems, and how does the sheriff's department fit into this plan?
Well, the opioid problem it's huge. There's no two ways about it. I mean, the drug program, I don't know if you're ever going to get it to go away. What you can do is just keep hammering away at them. Like I said in the first forum, part of the thing that I'd like to see for the opioids is to, if you get a prescription from a doctor and you get a 10-day supply, through the pharmacy, you maybe only get 3 days. I know it's a hindrance, it's kind of a pain, but majority of the people probably don't take their medications to the end, especially when they're the narcotic type ones for the 10 days period. They maybe only use them for 3 days or 5 days. And then that's just a lesson they got laying around for somebody to get a hold of or to destroy. Work on that. As far as the education with the youth, to try to teach them some of that. I've been advocating that we need to get back to the DARE program or some sort of a drug education program in these schools, countywide. So at least we're able to get back to the youth and give them the descriptions and give them the plans, the information for them to make good life choices. And if they don't make a good life choice, that's on them. But if we can save 1 or 2 of them from trying it, you start looking at the long-term effects with either treatment programs, how many times they've been in the treatments, those types of things. So education is a big part of it, and also restriction of some sort of the narcotics that are coming out there.
Corey, what are your views on the opiate crisis?
Well, I certainly think, the vast majority of the doctors out there that are doing the prescriptions, I think, are very responsible and doing a good job. But there are some that simply are abusing it and over-prescribing some of the drugs. And so, in short, probably an overhaul in the way we prescribe meds, for the system. Maybe some oversight into prescriptions in general. As far as the DARE program goes, I taught DARE for years in 3 schools in Hubbard County, and it was a good program. It went away prior to me being sheriff. When I got elected, I tried to bring the DARE program back, but you have to have buy-in from the schools, and the schools did not want to bring DARE back. And so it's not that simple to just implement the DARE program. You have to, like I say, it's up to the schools. It's their building, and it's up to them. But again, with kids, obviously that's a great place to start. I just don't have the answers because we're not in charge of the schools. But, in Hubbard County, meth is still king, and that's what we run into far more than opioids.
Remember about that? Getting back to the DARE thing there, I don't know if DARE is the answer to everything. There are other programs that are out there, but if we're told once, no. We've all probably had kids. They don't stop when you tell them no the first time. They keep going, so you keep hammering back at them. I know I've talked to the one superintendent. He said he hasn't been approached lately about it. The DARE program has changed. It used to be a 17-week program. It's now a 10-week program with an opioid lesson in there as well. So we need to get back into something or do something, either that or at least get into the schools. If it's not a 10-week program, maybe it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something. Something is better than nothing and sitting back, because we've done nothing for the youth to get them trained. We failed.
Corey, you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm always been open to teaching the drug program again. I taught it for years in Nevis, Akeley, and LaPorte. And, you know, if there's a program out there that we can tie into with the schools, but those two schools, actually it was Nevis and LaPorte who said no. And a big part of it is that it's a long time. 10 weeks was a lot for them to commit to, and the teachers had trouble with it. So.
Should I rebut or no?
Let's go with that. Corey, explain your experience working with other departments and agencies, and what is the best way to create a good working relationship with these agencies?
Well, internally, as far as in the county, you know, we work with social services on a weekly basis. Typically, it's my investigators working with, you know, their social workers, so that happens on a regular basis, and we have a very good working relationship. Neighboring counties, you know, whether it's, you know, them assisting us assisting them, it's been great. You know, even in our own county, you have Akeley PD and then Park Rapids. Great relationship, you know, with their chief of police is there, and just, it's good. And it's just always having each other's back, being there, providing assistance, and relationships will build on their own. And we've done that, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah?
Well, I think it's extremely important. I mean, you have to have a good rapport with all department heads, all departments are there, because eventually you'll need each other. Either it's the highway department, social services, you know, land department. There's always something that we need to do. As far as getting a good working relationship, me personally, I think we need to have a working relationship with all agencies within inside the county, all surrounding counties, the BCA, State Patrol. It doesn't really matter. I mean, you have to be able to communicate and build this rapport with everybody, because with the Line 3 thing coming, I can guarantee you that Hubbard County cannot handle this themselves, neither can Beltrami County themselves, Clearwater, any of them. You have to be able to work, get the mutual aid, and move things around and try to have a communication, get these meetings, things done, and work with each other. Because, like I said, it's a long road to hoe if you're going to stand by yourself.
Rebut? And we do meet with our neighboring counties and counties in the region on the Line 3 topic on a regular basis, because it is important. We're training, and we're training with each other for that simple fact. So that is something that we are already doing.
Kevin?
Yeah, I'd love to. The communication goes far beyond Line 3. It's everything. It's, you know, you got warrants, you got drug stuff coming through, you've got issues with the other agencies that are coming through with maybe line moves or something like that. We can't just say that it's going to be Line 3. It's got to be clear across the board. It's got to be the whole term that you're here, not just for a little short period of time. You have to be able to communicate, maneuver through things, work with them for the mutual aid portion of it. That's huge.
And we do.
Okay, moving on. Dan, tell me what your ideas are in dealing with inmates with mental issues, and where should they be housed?
Well, we all know that there's a lot of people out there with mental illness, especially with the closing of the state facilities, Brainerd, Fergus Falls, Agwaching. When they do get into the jail, we need to have a crisis team, I think a de-escalation team, because typically when you get a lot of them, and I've had several of them over the years where they're wound up pretty tight, they're pretty hostile when they come in, you wind up fighting with them, you wind up putting them in the chair. And really, I think if you have a de-escalation team or a crisis team, that is key. So to be able to talk to those people, a lot of times the noise, the congestion gets to them. Have somewhere where they can be housed, you know, in a separate cell somewhere by themselves to calm themselves back down. Keep checking on them, let them know you're actually human. You know, if you start treating people the way that we should be treated, you know, it's actually a lot of times when you're talking to people, it does calm them down quite a bit. And a lot of that goes back to just different trainings and those types of things. And, you know, there are those that are actually, people think that they're mentally ill, but maybe they got some other issues on board, or they think they're intoxicated, and they are just got some mentally ill issues there. Checking with them, you know, do you have your medications? Are you taking medications? Once you get them calmed down, so at least you have a baseline to start, and then you have to work from there. It takes time. I mean, most people are not, when they're mad at you, they're not gonna, you know, be all happy and jolly in a couple minutes. It does take some time, and it will stop.
Corey, what are your ideas on dealing with inmates with mental issues?
Well, because I do run a large jail, we do deal with this on a daily basis. And the problem we have is every once in a while, there's other facilities around the state that will take some of our inmates that have true mental health issues. But the problem is, it doesn't happen often enough. Very seldom, because they're full, so then our staff has to deal with them. But we do have, you know, medical staff that are in our facility daily. They do tend to their needs daily. And, you know, the staff that I have, I'm very lucky to have, you know, such a compassionate group back there that have gone through the training, the mental health training over the years, and they deal with them very well, as best they can. So there still are issues, absolutely, but we do get them the help the best we can.
And housing? Where do you think they should be housed?
Well, the state simply needs to have places to put them. You know, right now, we're driving them to southern Minnesota, if there's an opening. But the problem is, there isn't, so they need to build some places, because there simply is not enough beds around the state. And it's not just my jail, it's every jail in the state of Minnesota.
About that?
Sure.
I'll just add to it, I should say.
Yeah.
I do agree that state needs to do something. The old, you know, when I was back in the deputy and I've hauled people down to Fergus Falls, those types of things, you know, those are, even Agoching was their true, look like institutional rooms. They need to get something, they need to build these places, but the problem is they're gonna have to have, you know, room for hundreds of people scattered all over, because the mental illness stuff, there's people running all over these streets that, you know, that probably should be contained somewhere. However, they're not, and that is causing the problem. And, you know, a lot of this, if we can get them to calm down with like a crisis team. I know there was a study done in Detroit where the assaults on the officers, after they had their crisis team working on things, the assaults were down 80%. And that's just communication with them. I know it takes time off the road for guys, but I guess I'd rather talk than fight. That's just my whole thing, and I think that's what we need to get, work on them a little bit.
The crisis team is only a short-term solution. It only helps right then and there. You know, long-term, we need places to take these people, because they truly have mental issues and they need help. And the state, and it's not easy, because it isn't hundreds of people that need housing, it's actually thousands. It's every jail in the state of Minnesota, and that's gonna take several facilities, and you're talking millions and millions of dollars, but it needs to happen. It's a huge issue, and these poor people sit in jail, and they're at the low point of their life, and you know, they're in jail because they broke the law. But there's better places for them to be, plain and simple.
Thank you. Corey, explain how you learned to budget for the sheriff's office.
How you learn?
How did you learn how to budget?
That's a very good question. Some of it was, you know, as a sergeant for 5 years prior to being elected, I was involved in some of that. So you actually have a sheriff that includes you in some of that stuff. So that's kind of where I started out, was, you know, being included by the existing sheriff and chief deputy. And it just took off from there. And then, you know, when you get thrown into it, you know, you hope the county auditor will have time for you, and other staff as well. But yeah, as a sergeant, I worked my way into it that way.
Dion, how will you learn to budget for the sheriff's office?
Well, to be honest, you learn to budget ever since you have your first job. Because if you spend more than you got in your pocket, then pretty soon one of us is knocking on your door because you wrote some bad checks or you got warrants or something else. But all the way through, back when I was a deputy, I wrote the grant and I had the budget for the DARE program. And it's all the way through. I mean, all the way through your life, you learn how to budget different things. I know for me, when I am elected here, the sheriff's conference down there, they do have, the Minnesota State Sheriff Association does have programs, they have training for sheriffs. There's a lot of resources for them down there. And again, you get a hold of the auditor, let them work with you. Because I can guarantee you the first year that I'm just gonna speak for him, because the first year that he was a sheriff, I'll bet you that he pulled some hair out trying to figure out budgets and do different things, because nothing was very smooth. And it's a lot of this is on the job training as you're going through. And all the programs and stuff that I've done over the years, I'm pretty sure I should be able to handle this with the resources, making phone calls if I need to go to different counties and talk to them. I talked to the ex-secretary that I used to work for, that worked for the county. I spoke with her. She's like, hey, any help you need, we can certainly give you a hand, help you, get you on the right track, get you moving on things that we need to go. Done.
Yeah. Deanne, what management experience do you have, and how would you describe your management style?
My management style. Well, back as a deputy, I started back there when I did the DARE program. I took, a lot of different kids doing things. You're managing their time, you're managing what they need to do, you're supervising them per se as well. Even coaching hockey all these years, you're still supervising. And to me, it's, when you have, a large group of, say, officers who've already been trained, they should know the integrity, the respect, everything else. It should be a lot easier to manage them than it is a bunch of 12 and 14-year-old kids that are wilder than a March Hare running around on a hockey rink. So you do have to keep track on things. You keep them on task. I'm firm and I'm fair. I know there's been some comments made that I'm strict, but I do require excellence, and I do require people to do their job, hold up their end of the bargain. That's the same thing I've done with the kids at the hockey. It's nothing different than what I would do here. Just work and do your things, explain to them, and first and foremost, I would lead by example.
And the first half of the question is, what management experience do you have?
Just coaching and managing the hockey teams.
Corey?
I got 13 years of supervisory experience, 5 years as a sergeant here with the county, and then obviously 8 years of extensive experience, as the sheriff. And he stole some of my sound bites there, but fair but firm, absolutely, is a huge thing there. Leading by example, you have to. As a sheriff, I still stop cars. I'll go with my officers on calls. I was just with them on Labor Day. We seized a pig, so it shouldn't have been where it was. There's just things that you have to do with your crew to lead by example. You got to show that you're not above doing that. I'm strong on accountability, and that's been a stickler with me, and that's probably as important as it gets, holding staff accountable.
Everybody. I didn't steal those. That's how I've run my career. I am firm and I'm fair. You can ask all my hockey kids. That's just how I've always been. That's how I've run my career. I've always tried to lead by example. There's a reason why I was a 2017 Troop of the Year last year. A lot of that is integrity and example and leadership that I have shown through the state.
Corey, you're the sheriff, and your office does random drug testing. One of your deputies is drawn to have a drug test, and he replies, "This is not a good time, can we do it next week?" How do you handle that situation?
Well, it all depends on, is that in our policy, or, what right do I have to do that to them? Let's just say it is. Say it's in a union contract, for example, and it should be spelled out. If they refuse, it's going to be immediately put on suspension. The ball would be in their court, but again, it's a little hard to answer that without having a little bit more knowledge as where that is coming from. Policy or what? So I'm just going to assume that it is. But no, if they're required to do it, they refuse to do it, I'm only gonna assume there's a reason, and I would take them off the road and I would send them home until we get this ironed out.
Dion, this is not a good time, can we do it next week?
No, we're gonna do it right now. Okay, I'll answer right now.
Okay.
A lot of that boils down to union contracts and how things are at. Where did that complaint come in? How did that information come in? Is it, is it reliable, or is it somebody just mad and doing different things? You have to look at the complaint. Is it a signed complaint where somebody's willing to stand up and back their information? If they're doing that, and then, okay, now we got that out of the way. Now you gotta start looking at the union contracts. Is it in the contracts where they can, they are subjected to random testing? And if they are, and again, I'll agree with the incumbent here that if they refuse, there's immediate disciplinary action. Because there's a reason. Because actually, to be honest, those tests either are gonna protect them or they're gonna cause problem for them. If there's no drugs or alcohol on board and they refuse to take the test, shame on them. They should know better than that. But if there is, take your test, take your lumps and move on with your life. Don't try to hide things, because it'll always come back and bite you. But I just think that it's immediate disciplinary action. And I wouldn't send them home. They would not be driving a county unit, they would be given a ride home. At that point, I would be seizing some of their equipment just for safety purposes. So.
Thanks. Dion, what's your vision for the sheriff's office over the next 4 years?
Well, I'd like to obviously put a damper to the drug problem that we got going on up here. There are opioids, marijuana, whatever. Things I'd like to see happen up here. I'd like to have a canine interdiction dog. I know that's kind of a different topic. I know we're going to disagree on that, but that dog is going to pay for itself time and time again if you get it with the right person. A dog is only going to be as good as its handler on different things. If we have an interdiction dog and we have somebody who's aggressive in traffic going out there. I know for us, our state patrol, our canine dog, and I made some calls the other day. To date this year, he's made nearly 70 interdiction stops with numerous seizures, numerous drug arrests, those types of things. Second thing I'd like to get, I want to get into the schools. Plan A don't work, you go to Plan B. Plan B don't work, you go back to tweak Plan A until you get something done in there. Something is better than nothing. The other thing I want to be is I want to be a sheriff that's going to be in all four corners of the community, counties, statewide, not just showing up on special events or maybe coming to and from the office. I want to be able to be out, talk to the people in the community, schedule days where I'm not having any meetings today. I'm actually out on the road. I'm going to work. I'm going to the port. I'm going to go to Besida. I'm going to go to Nevis. Going to go somewhere and meet with the people. Maybe house some town hall meetings a couple times a year, maybe 3-4 times a year. At least talk to the people, let them know what's going on.
All right. Well, one, we're going to continue working drug cases like we have been, and that's been a stickler for me, and my drug officers do a fantastic job. Earlier this spring, we had a drug bust that netted 30 drug dealers over a 2-day span, and that was a huge, huge thing. And there was plenty of them before that. We've had plenty since, and there's more to come. And that's just a huge thing for me. Currently, we already do have a canine, but he's about to retire, so we are going to replace that dog. Rather than a single-purpose drug interdiction dog, we're going to do a dual-purpose dog. It just makes more sense. A dog that could find that missing kid because it can track. Plus drugs. Our current canine is an award-winning canine dog with his handler, and hopefully we can get lucky again and get a fantastic one. But also going to continue to improve on technology. That doesn't go away, and that's a huge thing for us, and there's always needs for that. So.
Your viewpoint on canine program, different, your views on the canine program different dramatically. Do you think a single-purpose police dog would affect your deputy's safety?
Well, it certainly could. I mean, currently, the officer has a dual-purpose dog, which is a tracking dog. The dog will also apprehend, and the dog will find narcotics as well, find drugs. So you know, our current dog actually saved, you know, his officer, which he was working for Park Rapids at the time, when a suspect knocked him to the ground and was beating him up. And luckily, he was able to get the dog, hit his button, dog got out of the vehicle and bit the suspect. And it saved him. Did it save his life? Maybe. Who knows how far that would have got. So, yeah, I think there's a huge possibility having a multi-purpose dog versus something that just smells drugs. I would rather have something that does it all.
Yeah.
Well, at times you might want to think that, but how many of us have dogs at home and that dog's gonna come out and it's gonna protect you if you're hollering at it? I know our canine dogs for the state, they're interdiction dogs only. I know our dog, the one that we have that's down in Brainerd, has jumped out and saved his officer at well. To me, I just think that you know, the dog is gonna be as good as the handler, it's gonna be as good as the training that he gets. You know, it's kinda like humans. You put too much in the brain and sometimes stuff starts to get a little scrambling. You know, I know the PD just has a tracking in the canine dog. That's where the rapport with the other agencies come into play. There's canine dogs all over the place. If you know, they just had a search for that one in Ponsford just the other day. We started looking on that. There was a canine there from Becker County, one from Otter Tail, Moorhead, Fargo. There's several dogs that were around there. You know, as far as the safety part of it, if a dog starts barking, the suspects don't know if that's a dog waiting to get a hold of their hamstring or if that dog's waiting to get a hold of some drugs in that car. They have no idea what that is. And I don't, you know, at times you might want to think that, but I don't know if it's going to be that big of an issue with the safety portion of that. The dog barking is a dog barking.
I would much rather have a dog that gets training in all categories rather than just training in drugs. That dog that is a drug dog, that's all you train with it for. You don't train it to track down that missing child who's out in the woods or that missing person that has Alzheimer's. And that dog, you might think it's gonna bark, but this officer for Park Rapids, that dog was in the squad barking, I'm assuming, and that didn't scare off that suspect from punching that deputy. So there's a huge difference between a dog that will apprehend and one that you hope will come scare the guy off with its bark. There's a big difference there. So to me, it's going to be a multi-purpose dog.
Just for
Sure.
10 seconds. We can go back and forth on this dog business all night long. I just know for our canine dogs, if we're, you know, the big thing up here, everybody's worried about wants to get the dogs, want to hammer the dogs, want to do this, do that. Our dogs for the patrol, where we get them and how they've trained them, are typically in the top 10 in the nation, in nationwide canine, every year. The dogs that we get are phenomenal, the handles that we get them from are phenomenal. I've got that information where I can get them. I don't know what the dual purpose dog is, but I think ours are quite reasonable. And actually, in the big scheme of things, is there an issue with maybe having 2 dogs down the road? I don't see that. You know, if you want a tracking dog, you know, there's bloodhounds that are better than a lot of the shepherds. So I've been on many searches with dogs, and they can't find the suspect. And that does happen, depending on the weather and the conditions and what's going on.
Thank you. Dan, core values are fundamental beliefs of a person or an organization. What are your personal core values that outline what is important to you?
Well, I take the core values of the State Patrol very serious. You know, it's respect.
I mean, your personal core values.
My personal core values, you know, it's trust. Integrity is huge for me. And trying to, you know, treat people the way that I want to be treated. I believe that I've done that my whole career. You treat people with compassion. You know, you talk to them like a human. You don't, you know, try to talk down to them and different types of things. It's, you know, those are the values that I've run my stuff by. And they're, you know, most law enforcement, they run the same core values. They're the same personal values that I have. You know, you treat people with respect. You hope that they respect you back. Sometimes they don't. You know, when excellent, you do your best every day. Like I said, you get home at night or after your shift, you look in the mirror and you go, you know, did I do a good job today or did I not do something right today? Or those types of things. It happens.
What are your professional core values?
Professional ones? Professional ones, like I said, we run those same with the State Patrol. They're respect, courage, integrity, excellence, and trust. That's no different than anything else, and nothing different than anybody else should have working in law enforcement. You want to make sure that you have that sense of pride. People look up to you, they trust you, they should trust you, and you hope that, you know, you're giving them the right information and giving them the values, you know, and again, you lead by example. Everything you do, you lead by example.
Corey?
Honesty, integrity, accountability, and that's what I think is what we need to teach our kids. It's what I teach my kids, and I look at that as being no different than what I have for values at work. And you get young officers that you hire are very impressionable, and you pair them with a field training officer, and you have to select the right person. That field training officer needs integrity, and you hope that those values rub off on your new officer. And it's huge. I mean, when we're dealing with people that deserve compassion, maybe we had a fatal accident, we need to deliver a death message. Not everybody can do that. That takes a little bit to do it, and I have some fantastic, compassionate officers who do a great job there, and I'm very proud of what they do. And I'm glad, you know, some of them are a little better than others, and but those values go hand in hand with my personal ones, with what we.
Are they your professional core values as well?
Yes.
And Corey, every organization has a set of values, whether they're written down or not. The values guide the perspective of an organization as well as its actions. What are your organization's value statement?
You know, I'm going to tell you, it's a lot of the same things, you know, whether we do it personally or in the department. So what I want, you know, my staff to have the honesty part of it, absolutely. The integrity, yes. The accountability, absolutely. You know, the department in a whole, you know, reflects on, you know, me and my values, and so my personal ones are gonna rub off on the entire, you know, department. And even if it's not in writing, that's just how we do business. And whether you're disciplining somebody or simply commending them on something, your values come out, and that's what I live by, that's what I believe.
Ian, what would be your organization's value statement?
Well, same thing. I mean, it boils back to, we've both been in law enforcement a lot of years, and as well as you have, and other people in this room. You lead by example. If you have these values, but when you're leading by example, that does not mean that I do one thing at work and I do another thing when I'm not at work. Regardless of where you're at, people look up to you. They know you're an officer 24/7, whether you're working or not. You know, and those values that come out, you know, the integrity and the trust, that's huge. Those are things that, you know, that can easily fall by the wayside when you're not working. Different things that happen. You know, I can maybe try something different here, but it's not. You lead by example, you show them what you want, you show them the trust, the respect that, you know, you give them, and hopefully they're giving back to you, and all the other things that fall into place. It shouldn't be that difficult. Like I said, a lot of it just boils down to leading by example.
Dan, in your opinion, what's today's hot topic involving training, and how does it impact Hubbard County?
Well, I'm huge in the training. I have, you know, I've been teaching at our State Patrol Academy since 1999. I've been teaching firearms since '93. I've also been in the schools teaching things. So for me, training is huge. You can't expect somebody to know something if they've never been taught or shown that. And like I said, I don't know what the county goes by. I know there's a lot of classes out there that I know the Minnesota Sheriff Association, looking on their website, they've got all kinds of trainings. We can actually host them here. There's places to put in for hosting. I know they've done it here as well. But you have to give the opportunity, find the ones that have a niche for something, let them continue on with it, whether it's field training, firearms, use of force, those other things. You know, you got to pick the spots that you think somebody's strong at. Have them go be the instructor, bring them back into their community, their departments, and start hosting these. And that's where you're going to get a lot of the excellence. You're going to get a lot less complaints when you have when they're trained the way they should be trained, and also to be given information that should be given instead of false information that causes more problems down the road.
Corey?
You know, we have multiple trainers in our department, and what we do when we select who's gonna train is who wants to specialize in something particular. Whether it's firearms, to, you know, mace, to use of force, there's a lot of different trainers that we have. Some of them are in this room, you know, behind you right now. And they're great at what they do, and we train for a purpose. It limits your liability in our day-to-day operations, and a lot of it's required. So it's kind of a dual purpose there, but again, multiple trainers already, we set it up, we just had a training yesterday, and you know, it was all day long, and you know, we do our firearms up at the Posse Shack, and it's a huge thing, and there's a reason it's required, and there's a reason that we actually go above and beyond our requirements, so.
Corey, what kind of training would you recommend to make sure deputies are not profiling or acting in a discriminatory manner?
Well, I'm gonna say this. I'm very lucky to the point where we haven't had to deal with that even without specific trainings like that. But there are, the Sheriff's Association does put on those type of trainings, you know, and we have a policy on it, which is mandated, but again, I've been very fortunate to not have to deal with complaints on that from my staff. We have a great staff, and I've been very fortunate to simply not have to do it. But if we did, there's profiling, you know, trainings out there to pick from, and if the time ever came, we would certainly implement it.
Yeah?
I know for us with the State Patrol, we have a lot of different trainings throughout the year. Some of it, you know, we appear in the class. We just had centralized in-service training, which is 2 half-days and a full day. I know Post does mandate, I think it's 48 hours of continual ed training for law enforcement officers to get their post license back. And part of that is racially profiling and other profiling. Now they're starting to change the name of profiling to like assessment. You know, so it's just changing the name of things, and it's, you know, if you go out there and you work hard and you take what comes down the road and do different things and not worry about, you know, what color, what race, what they've done, treat everybody equally, treat them the way, again, I keep saying this, treat them the way you want to be treated. The profiling thing, this never comes up. Just be firm and, you know, just make sure that there's, you know, they do attend some of the trainings. A lot of it is online. Just kind of explains a lot of the issues that are coming in and what's going on, what to look for, and those types of things. So for me, I would have, you know, get into some of the online stuff where you know, maybe in the evening sometime they can pull over for an hour and, you know, hammer out an hour segment, you know, online relating to profiling and those types of things.
What about de-escalation? Do you believe that all deputies should be trained or just a team?
Me?
Mhm.
I believe everybody should be. I mean, not just deputies, jail staff, everybody, because if you're gonna de-escalate and be able to take care of a possible confrontation with somebody, that's huge. Like I said, I'd rather talk to somebody than fight with them, and I'm sure he's the same way. It's a lot easier to do that. There's a lot of training, again, out there for de-escalation. We just had some of that ourselves, you know, for the State Patrol. I don't know what the county gets. I don't know what their training regiment is. But there's people out there that can do that. There's places around here that can teach that. I believe the Better Connection, they have programs like that maybe can teach that, or at least come in. And, you know, especially for the jail staff in there, because they're close quarters. You know, people are usually not cuffed, they're in there, but I do believe that everybody should have it, regardless.
Yeah, we don't mandate it for everybody. It's kind of an elective thing when officers and jail staff are picking different things, you know, that they might want to go to. Again, I've been very fortunate to have the staff that I do that currently does a great job, you know, in the de-escalation, you know, part of it. Whether it's the officers on the road or the staff back in the jail, they do a great job. But no, de-escalation it's a good topic. Especially in the jail, because they actually deal with it more often than they do on the road. But yeah, no, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to it.
Last question, and we'll get to it in a minute. First, the question is, as a law enforcement officer, What is your lowest and what was your highest point? And while you think about that, I'd like to introduce Jonathan Freed, who is running unopposed for county attorney. You have any words of wisdom for us?
What's that?
You have any words of wisdom for us?
As far as the debate here, no. Good luck, folks.
Thank you. Thank you first.
I think I am. Lowest point. You know, I think back to a call I handled 20-some years ago, and it was the death of an infant in a car crash. And that is one that I'll never forget. And it was something that, and there's actually a classmate of mine that was involved in it, and so I knew both ends of it. And so as far as a low point, I have to say that that's right up there, just because of how devastating it was and how the mom who was pinned in her vehicle, just how everybody was affected by it. So I have to say that was probably my lowest point. Highest point, you know, undoubtedly was, you know, I started here 28 years ago and I got elected sheriff 8 years ago, and that undoubtedly was my highest point in this career. It was something that it was a goal of mine since high school. I wanted to be the sheriff of Hubbard County, where I was from, and I never let up on my goals. And when it finally, after doing 20 years in law enforcement here with Hubbard County, I ran for sheriff and I won. And that night, election night, when I found out, absolutely my highest point.
Yeah?
Well, it's pretty easy for me. My lowest point, see if I can get through this. It was a fatal I took care of back in 97. It was a mom and her 2 kids that went to the grocery store. I was working what part for my wife. She was excuse me. She was a trooper in Ada, and we had 2 little kids that were 3 and 1.5. I get called to a fatal down at Highway 169 and Highway 19. A van T-boned or a loaded gravel truck, or grain truck rather, T-boned a van. I get down with my partner and there's 2 car seats in the ditch. Mom was dead. I still see the kids. But the 2 kids were the same age as my kids. But then not only that, but you take care of that, and then go to the death notification to the dad that he just lost his family. That sucked. You know, it's I still tell that story to the academy, and I go talk to them, and I'll speed up. The highest point probably for me is last year being kind of blindsided by getting the Trooper of the Year. I haven't changed anything that I've done my whole career. They just finally, somebody recognized the work that I've done. I've got a lot of high points. I mean, if there's one that, another one, that little girl on Highway 19 that was run over. I've done 30 seconds. It'll be a quick story. No?
Go ahead, 30
Okay.
seconds.
Anyway, the little girl on Highway 19 was run over by that guy and then took off. Getting called down there and realizing that with the reconstruction training and stuff that I've had, that it was the boat that hit her. And we found that boat 2 days later. And that guy's now resting in prison. To me, that, you know, that's another low point, but it's also a high point, knowing that you gave that family relief, and it also put a closure on it, because that one could have easily gone by and nobody would have ever known anything about it. Done. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I want to thank you both for being here tonight and participating in this forum. Everybody's invited. We'll sum it up here. And Corey, would you go first with your summation? You want to step up here?
All right. You know, many things separate myself from my opponent. You know, we're simply two different candidates that took two different career paths. Him as a highway patrolman, myself, you know, committed to Hubbard County back 28 years ago. He specializes in traffic enforcement and accidents. My path led me to patrolling this county for 20 years, then being a sergeant for 5, and the sheriff for the past 8 years. And it's the sheriff is the position that we were actually running for. Only one of us has extensive supervisory experience, and with the dozens and dozens of staff, the different personalities that we deal with, and the liability that comes with this profession, supervisory experience is actually very important. Only one of us has extensive budgeting experience. We have a $4.7 million budget that's not to be taken lightly. Only one of us has experience running the jail. We end up having 1,400 inmates a year coming through our doors. We generated nearly $500,000 in revenue in 2017, and I also have experience running and dealing with county boards. Only one of us has experience in dealing with multiple departments, and people don't think about it, but the sheriff's office is made up of patrol, dispatch, jail, boat and water, STS, civil process, emergency management, and our posse. It's a lot of responsibility, especially for someone who hasn't, you know, been working for Hubbard County. I don't have all the answers, but my staff works hard, and it certainly shows. We have a great running sheriff's office, and we strive to make it better every day. Thank you.
Ian,
Yep.
your summation?
Hang on a little bit. All right, we talked about different things, and you've heard both of our opinions here tonight. No, I am not from Hubbard County, which to me is refreshing. I'm not stuck in the same old, same old. Was not born and raised here. I'm not part of a good old boys club. What you're gonna get with me is what you're gonna get is what you're gonna see right here. I'm an OBS guy. The reason I actually wanted to run here is it's never been about the money. It's never been about a title. A lot of people hold their titles high. Yeah, I'm a state trooper, but I'm also a law enforcement officer and I also work for all of you. My whole thing, and he did, you know, I will give him that he has fulfilled his dream of being a sheriff. He has done that for 2 terms. My opinion, it's time for some new blood, new ideas, new visions, new incidents in here. I have no preconceived notion on anybody that's working at that department. I think it's time that we get a new change. The system's not broken. You know, it just needs to be tweaked a little bit. We need to change a few things up, maybe move on to things here. Before I was called, I was told I was just a trooper. I will match my resume with anybody. Things that I've done, things that I hold myself high to, accountable for. Talk about accountable, I can show you accountability and just things that I do. A lot of the stuff that I work on, just like the deputies, it's no different, you know, whether you go to jail or you go to prison. I mean, it could come from both of us, it really doesn't matter. I know they're talking about, you know, the jail, you know, 1,400 inmates. A lot of that's probably gonna wind up going down because Becker County is opening a new jail in December, moving prisoners in January, 190-bed facility. That's gonna cut down a lot on the money that's coming in, so we're gonna have to work on different things. You know, what kind of different visions do we have for that? What can we move on to? You know, it's time, like I said, it's time for some new tactics, time to get things going. I'm here for you, I will work for you, and that's how I run my career. I don't do it for me. It's never been about the money, like I said before. I can retire, but it's not the issue. What the issue is with me is, I think we need some different leadership up here, and I think I bring that to this department. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for being here tonight, and thank you all for being here also. There's cookies and coffee in the back, and you're invited to stay. The league has sponsored 5 forums during this election period. The next one will be for the Monaga School Board. It'll be on Tuesday, October 23rd at 7 p.m. at the Monaga School Media Center. I'm sure the candidates are going to wait around afterwards if you care to have some time with them also, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you.